Well, shalom. How are y'all today? I just want to show you guys something. I've upgraded my staff making life with this tool. Let me tell you, I have used the 5-inch little disc sanders. I spent forever on this first step, okay? This is Flowering Dogwood, one of the densest, hardest trees that you find in the Ozarks. Now, this tree, I cut this down back when my babies were born. The day before they were born, I was looking because it's like one of the first trees to put out flowers. You got this white flowers. And I absolutely have always wanted one because I'm obsessed with dense things, right? I love dense, hard, ridiculously stupendous, armor-piercing, awesome stuff. But as I was shaving it, I saw that there was this beautiful color under there. Look at that. Nice. So I'm going to try to preserve some of that because the truth is most colors that are like vibrant and beautiful, when they get exposed to ultraviolet light, they're going to break down and they're going to change color over time. But right now, it's beautiful and it's there. But this beautiful, incredible Milwaukee best tool ever awesomeness with a little flap disc sander, okay? So much better because this will last a lot longer and I can push harder. Whereas with the little disc sanders, those little like, take forever. So I just want to show you what that's like. So much faster. So with this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount a spearhead.
It smells good.
Doesn't it smell good? It does smell nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be mounting a spearhead on this end of it. And I have a rivet from a locomotive, a boiler locomotive chamber from a beautiful steam engine, okay? Now, I can't tell you exactly where I got it, but I'll say I found it inside of a train yard. I don't pay attention to the rules. I follow the Torah, the loving instructions of Yahuwah. But I don't always follow the signs of man. Anyways, it was loose on the ground. I did not destroy anything in order to get it. I love it though, and I've always been like, it's like the LinenRailroad, right? So I've dragged this thing with me all over the place. But I'm gonna put that as a butt cap. So one of the things that you have on a spear is in order to protect the base of it for a long period of time, overuse, this will get mushroomed and cracked and jagged. So I've got this big old cast iron bolt that like a rivet that's going to go inside there that was all hammered out and stuff like that. So I'm going to put that down in the base of this thing and kind of counterbalance it because this thing is stout, but it's not that heavy. It's really nicely balanced. So what I'm going to do though, when I put a big old long spearhead on the end of this thing that's like from a agate, I'm going to put that on the end of it, but then it would make this lopsided. So the butt cap of a spear really works to be able to protect it. And there's this beautiful story in Samuel. Gosh, I love Samuel. It's so good. It's full of all kinds of death and I love that. All right, I had to go get it because it would be really fun to show you guys. Okay, this is that rivet I was talking about. Look at that. Look at that thing. Now it's moderately uneven. You know, that's just how it is. They would heat these things up, y'all. Like they had like a literal like forge, like a tiny little forge that they would have just for these bolts. Okay, and you can see the back end of it has this very peculiar shape like that. Okay. Now what I'm probably going to do is that band. I'm going to cut that off of there. I'm going to just take my little Dremel, I'm going to cut that part off of it, and I'm going to pull this piece off entirely. And then I'm going to wire wheel it so that it looks shiny and new, and that way I can get some of this flaked rust. Check this out. So I cut this piece that's up here on this rivet. It's like a little shroud. I was able to get that off there and cut around the front of it here and just cut a little bit of a relieve groove in there. So there's that. Now I'm back to wire wheeling. Then we're just a little bit too big, but you know what? We're going to be really stinking close. It's awesome. Anyways, now back in Colorado, which may or may not be the place I found this. It is. Now back in Colorado, the deserts there are super dry. So like we don't have stuff that rusts really bad. Like this thing could be sitting out in a field. Like one of my favorite places to find stuff like this was on the boilers for these steam powered hammer mills. Hammer mills were used to just crush iron or to crush gold or silver ore when they were doing all these minings. And so this stuff's still sitting there. It literally looks like they walked away yesterday and it's not rusted. There's a tiny little bit of surface rust, very little pitting. But this same thing left out here is going to turn to literal dust in a matter of years. Whereas out there it's like 140 years old and it's still just sitting there. So anyways, this is what I'm going to put down on the end of this right there. So it's going to be like that. Isn't that sweet? I'm so excited. Anyways, ever since I was young and I read about somebody being killed with the butt end of a spear, I'm like, I want a butt end of a spear so I can totally kill somebody with it. It would be savage. I know, some of you are disturbed, but that's my spearhead. Look at that beauty. Isn't that just beautiful? I have iron spearheads as well, like one that's made by Smith & Wesson and another that's made by Cold Steel, and they come with this like broom handle attachment, so you can mount them onto a broom handle. You can go to the store and buy a broom handle for super cheap, and then you can thread it on there. But I sharpen them up like crazy, and they're like terrifyingly sharp. It's likely to lead to someone's death or the loss of their eye, because these things are super sketchy, y'all. You want a sheath. You literally want a sheath, but I've noticed that with the stone ones, I don't feel that same like terrified concern as I do with like a savage iron pointed spear. Anyways, I'm learning moderate responsibility with carrying spears around and stuff like that, but I still don't have that quite yet. So anyways, I'm gonna mount that there. I just thought that the color of that agate matched this wood beautifully. So it's gonna be a match made in ferocious kingdom warfare zone. But check this out. I'm gonna take you on a journey back into my favorite book ever. If you haven't read 1st and 2nd Samuel 30, 40 times, I highly encourage you to read that and then just immerse yourself in the book of Judges every time you're finished. You'll come out quite invigorated and ready for war. It's good for you. It's good for you. There's a bunch of soggy people out there who have no idea what it takes to be a battle-hardened warrior. But if you read those books, it'll certainly get you there right quick. Anyways, are you ready for this? Check this out. All right, 2 Samuel 2. This is amazing. Check this out. And Joab. Oh, this is so good. Check this out. And the time that David was sovereign in Hebron over the house of Yehuda was 7 years and 6 new moons. This is right when David finally became king over Israel, all right? But he wasn't crowned over the entire kingdom yet, only more like the house of Judah. This is super important stuff. If you don't know about the 2 houses of Israel, you're completely blind and derelict, deaf and dumb, and you don't know basic Bible history. Here's how it goes. Basically, there was constant infighting and lack of unity among all of Israel, the children of Elohim, right? Constantly, it was ridiculous. They started trying to unite the tribes again under King Saul, but it wasn't really successful. There was a lot of animosity. There was a lot of, like, family feuds. You know what I'm saying? Dadgummit, it's hard for children to get along. Don't you know that? You raise children, you're like, stop fighting! Please stop fighting! They fight all the time. It's ridiculous. Anyways. They struggled to get along. They were on the struggle bus. They should have got on the LinenRailroad, but they all weren't there yet. Check this out, though. King David is brought in, and they're like, we should unite, because Yahuwah had appointed David. David, it was Yahuwah's choice for king. Saul was the people's choice. He was beautiful, handsome, and a head and shoulders taller than all the people in Israel. And they're like, look at that beautiful, mighty man. Be our king. King of compromise. That's what King Saul was. He chased the crowd. He held on to the power. When the prophets came to rebuke him, he held on to the power. It's like, just esteem me in front of the people, please, Samuel. I just want the elders and the people to esteem me and love me, even though David's obviously way better than I am. Please esteem me. Make me awesome. He got his esteem right until the witch of Endor. Dadgummit. Then he ate a salt covenant, talked to the dead. Terrible decision. He lost his life and his son's life. That was a bad deal. Anyways, here's Israel, like, King David's been anointed king. We should probably make him king anyways over us too. So in the beginning, though, he reigned in Hebron, not Jerusalem like you're thinking of, okay? This is important. For 7 years, that's a long time. I have a 7-year-old. That's been a long time, y'all. 7 years is a serious amount of time. Raise animals. Get rid of your dogs. Raise children. Anyways, let me save you a lot of heartache. And Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met them by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down on one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. Now this is important. King Saul, after he died, he had son, Abner, right? People wanted Abner, Ishbosheth. Abner was the commander of King Saul's army, okay? Abner wanted Ishbosheth to be king over Israel. He's like, he should be the king. David is reigning as king. Abner and Ishbosheth are reigning as king and general over Israel. Joab is the commander of David's army. So now David's commander of his army and Ishbosheth's commander of his army are hanging out at a well. Things are about to go down. People are going to die. It's going to be crazy and awesome. Check this out. And Abner said to Joab, let the young men now rise and compete before us. And Joab said, let them rise. And they rose and went over by number, 12 from Benjamin, followers of Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, and 12 from the servants of David. And each man took hold of his opponent by the head and thrust his sword in his opponent's side. And they fell down together, so that the place was called the Field of Sharp Swords, which is in Gibeon. And the battle was fierce that day. And Abner and the men of Israel were smitten before the servants of David. Yeah, David's Gibberim, son. In the battle, and there were 3 sons of Zeruiah, and Joab, and Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was light on his feet, and as one of the gazelles in the field. This dude could run as fast as an antelope, a gazelle, okay? Don't think of the stuff in Africa, y'all. Think of the stuff in America. Just for a second, consider this. All the animals we read about in the scriptures, we find them over here in America. Bears aren't over there. Just tuck that away. Something you should dig into vehemently. He was as fast as one of them. Dude, that means he could run like 30, 40 miles an hour. I've seen antelope, pronghorn antelope, take off and go 40 miles sticking an hour. This dude could outrun them. That's a real thing. Real people, swift-footed as the gazelles. Don't forget this. You can call upon Yahweh and he can make you swift-footed. That doesn't mean you should run track and sports and all the garbage stuff in schools. Stay out of the sports. That's where the Greeks go in order to consume their paganistic gods. You were made to worship mightily. Live mightily. You should be hunting down people with spears. Way more effective. You'll love it way more than you ever did in your track days. Trust me. And Asahel pursued Abner. And in going, he did not turn aside to the right or to the left following Abner. And Abner looked behind him and said, "Are you Asahel?" And he answered, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left and lay hold on one of the young men. Take his armor for yourself." But Asahel would not turn back. Turn aside from following him. And Abner again said to Asahel, "Turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I face your brother Joab?" But he refused to turn aside, and Abner struck him with the blunt end of the spear. Yeah, son! You betcha! So he's got his pointy end bit. He's like, yeah! But he's running this way with it, okay? So instead, he doesn't even totally turn around and fight him that way. He's just like, "Hah!" Well played, son. Take your tactics from the scripture. It's savage. So that the spear came out of his back. Ooh. And he fell down there and died on the spot. You betcha, bro. Penetration is how you kill people, okay? Slashing, cutting, it's penetration is all where it's at. All the good vital stuff is buried down inside the very armored spaces of your body for a reason, okay? Slashing in very precise and particular areas is moderately effective, for certain. But a piercing thrust, shockingly more effective. The blunt end of the spear came out of his back end for a reason. And it came to be that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died, they stood still. And Joab and Abishai pursued Abner. And the sun was going down, and they came to the hill of Ammah, which overlooks Giah, by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered together behind Abner and became a single company, and took their stand on top of a hill. And Abner called out to Joab and said, "Should the sword devour forever? Do you not know that it is bitter in the latter end? And when are you going to say to the people to turn back from pursuing their brothers?" And Joab said, "As Elohim lives, if you had not spoken, then all the people would have given up pursuing their brothers only the next morning." Joab then blew with the shofar, and all the people halted and pursued Yisrael no further, nor did they fight any more. And Abner and his men went on all that night through the desert plain and passed over the Yarden, and went through all of Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. And Joab turned back from pursuing Abner. And when he gathered all the people together, there were missing of David's servants 19 men and Asahel. But the servants of David had stricken of Benjamin and Abner's men 360 men who died. And they brought Asahel and buried him in his father's burial site, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went out all night, and they came to Hebron at daybreak. Oh, this sets up a massive blood feud that goes on for a good long while, that ends up leading to Joab finding a way to assassinate Abner later on, under a pretext of peace. He had his sword in his belt, and he went to greet Abner outside of this well. And as he stumbled towards him, his sword fell out of his sheath. Now, if you're not familiar with wooden scabbards, sheaths, most of you guys are like thinking Kydex stuff like this. You're like, yeah, that would not fall out readily, right? But I have wood sheath stuff, and my swords genuinely fall out of it. It's super sketchy. I've cut myself severely with it. The sword fell out, and then Abner's not paying attention to the sword, and he's like, "Oh, come here, my brother." And Joab goes ahead, grabs him by the beard and kisses him, and then thrusts him right through his guts. You go right up through the intestines for the killing blow. Right up through the intestines, right up to the heart, man. Game over, son. That's what he does, and he kills him, boom, on the spot. And then David's pissed because he had promised him peace. He's like, "You're going to have peace." Abner, you and I are at peace, because Abner came and he's like, you know what? I'm done with Ishbosheth. He got his head cut off. That's super awkward. I want David to be king, and I'm going to help you become king, David. And David's like, sweet, let's do that. And we're in peace together. And then Joab's all like, betrays David's covenant of peace. Then David mourns, and the people are like, David's awesome. So then they all crown David king, and now all of the kingdom begins in bloodshed. So that's Kingdom of David time. It's awesome. I wish I could be there so bad. Every single day of my life, all I ever wanted to grow up in was that time. But instead, I'm stuck in this civil world where people are whiners and crabby and have no value for a spear. But we're going to change that one spear at a time. You can go on Etsy, you guys, and buy spears like this for moderately cheap. That being said, I am trying to learn how to make my own. I'm terrible at it. They look awful, and they're just generally chunky bits of chert, which is what I have here in abundance. But I'm trying to learn how to make my own tools because it's hard to make a gun. I've made tiny little things that are cylinders that you can use for like power heads, for killing bears, and spears on the ends of spears and stuff like that for killing sharks and alligators. But it's really hard and complicated to make an actual firearm. So instead, make spears, knives, and swords. This is like my deep desire in recovering the ancient past. This is what the Linden Railroad's all about, y'all. Wearing hides, tanning animals, killing stuff, and having a great time while you do it. Making people moderately uncomfortable as you learn the ancient past. But you know what? Mighty men of Yah don't care about people's awkward opinions. We care about Yahweh Elohim's opinion of us. Because at the end of the day, we want our names written on the Lamb's Book of Life. We want to be people that are found inside the Book of Remembrance. If you don't know about the Book of Remembrance, y'all, read the Bible from beginning to end. There's a special book that not everyone's going to be written in about those who revere Yahweh and talk about his name. That's a serious deal. So when people throw out his name like 4, 5, 6,000 times out of your scriptures, that's a big deal. But his name can be known. It's beautiful. It's powerful. It's not required, but it's beneficial. And when we talk about his name, when we revere his name and his character, like his mighty justice and the just manliness of his character, we get his name, our names written in the Book of Remembrance. That's savage. Be found in that book. Otherwise, I love you all. I hope you find ways to live dangerously, courageously, valiantly, and use cool tools like this and change the world.
All right, we're back for some awesome time of grinding. We're going to work on our blunt end of the spear. I've got some gloves on, some safety features. This is because I learned a horrible lesson about our family almost dying from mold. If you haven't watched our end of the road video, it was devastating. Our life was totally ruined. Don't mess around. This is great, but you got to get filters that are good for mold. I'm not working with mold today, but I've got some vice grips. I'm going to wire reel this end of the spear off. We're going to mount it to the back of this thing. Then we're going to work on the front end of the spear. It's going to be terrific. So, it'll be a good time. Should be a little sparky. The right tools do make a huge difference in this. That being said, y'all have no excuses. If you don't have the right tools, figure it out. Barter for them. Almost all of these tools were gifts. Garage sales, begging, and bartering. My buddy gave me these. They were broken completely. Awesome, Milwaukee. He used to mock me for my DeWalt's all the time. And I was like, dude, I don't have another option. And he was all like, I got a couple. So they were broken. Their chucks were all busted up and locked up. He gave them to me. I found a repair shop. They said they didn't have any way to fix it right now. They said it might be 6 months. I went back 6 months later. Got them fixed. Now I've got 2 sweet Savage drills with some knockoff batteries. Woo! They don't work super well. I don't recommend them. I have 1 real battery. It's awesome. Be resourceful. Overcome. It's all about an endurance race, y'all.
Next, I'm going to work on, I've got a little bit out here on this end. I've got to drill that out, okay? So I don't have a bench with a vise or a tool shop or anything like that. My totes live in a tote right now. So I just make it work, y'all. One of the ways that I, like when I cut stuff out in the forest and I do a lot of like round pole construction building stuff, I use leg vices, okay? So you can use your leg, the pressure of your leg to lock the piece that you're working on. You can do it on the inside of your leg. Generally, it's not recommended because you want to guard your loins. Gird up the loins of your mind. Sometimes you need to gird the loins of your loins. So, in order to preserve your future inheritance and the children that are supposed to come from your loins, you can cut like this if you're lefty, okay? You can cut like this if you're a righty-tighty guy, right? So this is one of the ways that you can kind of lock a piece in and get a little leverage on it. when you don't have somebody else to help hold it, because a lot of times when you're trying to saw something, it's doing this whole number and it's really difficult. So I got this saw from an antique store for $4. It's sweet. I like high carbon tools, and I like stuff that's geometrically designed for human hands, not the garbage that's made for robots. Stinking monsters. Anyways. Now let me show you one of my other go-to tools. This little guy right here, okay? When I want to cut the insert for the spear, right? I need to put a vertical notch going down into the spear. You have a couple different ways that you can do that, all right? You can, first of all, wrap it with cordage. I like to use waxed hemp, one of my favorites, and sinew. Those are like some of my go-tos. So if I was gonna split this in order to shove something down there that's wider, for those of you who can't see, it's pretty wide. It's every bit of a ½ inch wide, which means I gotta have ½ inch wide space that can receive that inside the core of this staff still. Or if it's not big enough to be able to do that, you split it. So I could take my knife like this and baton it down and create that split. But in order to prevent it from cracking further down, I preemptively, before I do that, I tie it going up. So I start a string down lower than that, and I start tying it up to help brace that staff, so that way it doesn't keep splitting and continuing on to separate those fibers. So you got to make that choice. I'm going to use this little guy. Got it at a thrift store or garage sale, I don't know, 15 years ago. It doesn't work super well. The battery lasts about, I don't know, 4 to 5 minutes. So I got to make it work. But this is one of my favorite parts. Before I do that, real quick, it's important that you know how the staff's going to point, or your spear's going to point. So like, I don't use super 100% straight pieces of wood. When I want to find those, I go into a mature forest and I look for saplings of oak and hickory predominantly. Those are my go-tos, right? This thing, if you look at it, it's got a side that's heavier. That's the one that's pointing down towards the ground right now. So that when I draw it back in my hand and I release, I do that a few times to just see how does it want to fall? How does it want to slide as I let it go? Because if I go to start putting all these different weights on the end of it and I do it where it's counterbalanced like this, it's going to want to rotate in my hand. So instead, I just work with that as the natural point of aim, so that when I hold it from the rear and I do my thrust forward, it's going to want to sit. So that's spear is going to be sitting flat like that. I like it to be pointing like that when I make a thrust. You can have it like this too, but it's just more aesthetically pleasing. It's going to match everything like that. So for me, that's going to be this way. I'm just making marks on it so that I know what's my depth that I want to go to, and then how wide do I want that cut to go. Now if I had a wider bit, I could also just drill this out. Just thinking about different ways I could do this. And use a chisel. Man, there's manly tools I just don't know how to use, like a chisel. I have chisels. I've genuinely never used them except for prying stuff, which is wrong. I could probably use a chisel to do this too. I'm sure it's way better. Y'all carpenters out there, I know you're watching this and you're just cringing continually. I love you so much. Some of us weren't raised by men who knew these skills or these trades. Maybe they did. Maybe my dad did know a lot of this stuff. I just was too embittered to pay attention at times, or I was too distracted and bored. So, sorry about the intermission. Big Thunder woke up. You wanna say hi? You wanna say hello? You wanna go roam around in the gravel? You wanna eat rocks? They're good rocks. Yeah. Hi, Pearl. Hey! What's going on, man? Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna be quiet, Jane. No, let's not try to get that black dog to come over. I don't even have my spear. Well, I guess I have my spear. I've had a black dog that charged my family, attacked my family. Big black pit bull, 2 others. My daughters want me to kill it. I'm teaching the difference about using a shotgun versus using a spear when it comes to noise complaints and witnesses. You want to deal with dogs with spears when you can. Machetes are my preferred tool, but I'm trying to branch out, you know, get better. Never stop improving. Man, we need to go deeper than that. See, the problem here now is it's kind of drooping. Not ideal angle. Oof. Oof, that looks bad. I'm realizing I may not have the right tool for the job. This thing is moderately reasonable. However, I want to cut a wide wedge. I want to cut something like wider. I'm sure there's a saw that would do this. And then I remembered this beautiful tool. This is made by Bad Dog Tools. I don't like stuff that blows up in my face. Angle irons scare the snot out of me, straight up. I'll have boogers coming out for a day when I use those things. They blow up. You ever use like cutting wheels and stuff like that? They explode. This one doesn't. It's encrusted with diamonds. That's lovely. These are not the pretty ones that you find in the mines that De Beers uses to run a conspiracy of farce, artificial scarcity. These are industrial diamonds. There's trillions of diamonds, y'all. It's an illusion of scarcity. They're no less rare than a topaz. Anyways, this one won't blow up. Lasts forever-ish. I'm gonna put it to the test. I'm gonna use this instead because I'm moderately hasty right now. Should have started with that one right away. Skip all this nonsense. Start with the other tool. Get to the sketchy angle grinders. Go right there. That was so much faster. Wasn't that awesome? There's something so glorious about the moment you start to put a spear inside of a stick. Man, this has killed more people than any other tool ever in the history of mankind. Seriously. This, a stick and a stone, y'all, has killed more people than I guarantee you all the firearm deaths ever. They've been around forever. It's amazing. You just feel like such a man. Like you feel like a man when you do stuff like this. You don't know till you try. You probably feel womanly too, but you know what I mean? Don't you want to immediately get on horseback and run down a buffalo and shove this through its heart? Yeah! I want to fight a saber-toothed lion so bad. Saber-toothed tiger, I just wanted to try to jump on my back and go for the killing blow, and then I throw it off and shirk it and just wrench it right through in its neck meat. Oh, that would just be so manly. Anyways, I'm totally fanatically obsessed with doing stuff like this because that's one of the greatest looking feelings I've ever had, ever. Now, actually right now it's pretty stinking balanced. It's balanced pretty good. So I'm gonna go throw that off pretty mightily by shoving this butt end on it. Maybe I should cut this collar off. I probably should. What do you think, bro? What do you think, bro? Sweet. So then I'm gonna pour my pitch inside here. I'm gonna wrap it. Man, that's great. Oh! You don't wanna leave these ends sticking out like this. This is important. You don't wanna leave these ends sticking up. You see how those are obtuse? Like you want, for penetration, you want as much of an acute angle as you can possibly get, because the more acute your angle is, the more efficient it is at penetrating. So if you leave that blocky, rough edge sitting there like that, it's gonna diminish your capacity for doing that. So one of the things that I do is I go ahead and I shave those in a little bit, okay? That helps you. Do that before you mount it. It's really important. One of those things I needed to do early on. All right. Genesis neck knife. Best neck knife in the world. mtknives.com. Dadgummit. Mighty man of Yah. He's raising 9 children, son. Ferocious warrior. Gotta love men. Being men. Oh no, the baby. Why are you taking her?
She's gonna go eat.
All right. Super sketchy. I'm likely to get super hurt doing this. All right, y'all. So I've got these thinned out a little bit here, and now it's the time for hafting of the spear, okay? So you wanna, once again, make sure that it's exactly in the way that you want it to be. so that it's oriented nice and smooth when it comes out of your hand, right? So today I'm gonna be using resin, okay, which is pitch, it comes from trees. Melt down the sap that comes from a tree, mix in a little bit of charcoal, a little bit of sometimes rabbit poop, like hair, something to help kind of bind it all together, or a little bit of fat, animal fat, like sheep fat, the hard fat that's kind of on the organs, stuff you're not supposed to eat, that stuff. Now, there's a guy who makes one like this, because some of you I know practically are just not going to get your own. You're not going to go out and do it. I've done it before. It worked okay. It cracked really, really bad, and then my arrowheads fell out of it. That was the stuff I made for the girls. I had little opal arrowheads in there, but it cracked badly, which means I didn't have something to bind it together very well. But anyways, this is his hafting resin, and this comes from thunderbirdatlatl.com. He's a professional napper. He sleeps professionally, something they didn't tell you could major in school, but you certainly can. He naps stones. That's how you make stuff like this out of a rock. It's incredible, lifelong dream. I'm gonna get there, folks. Until then, support the people that do this stuff, because he's keeping a primitive archery skills alive. He's one of those folks that I really like, because he does Osage orange bows and some of my favorite archery stuff. But in order to mount it, we're gonna heat it up. I've got that stuff heating up a little bit in here in this little pan. I line my dish with parchment paper. It just makes cleanup a whole lot easier. And then when you pull it out, you can just leave it and put it in a bag and then warm it up later. It's nature's hot glue. It's way better. It's nicer than epoxy, and it's not toxic. You know what I'm saying? So I warm it up a little bit, but then I let it slightly cool down till it's like almost thick syrup. Okay, that's the perfect temperature for it to be at. Then we're gonna wrap it with sinew, which comes from the back of a deer or back of a cow. Really, sheep, goats, they have the best stuff. They're awesome. So I've been chewing it in my mouth for a while. It softens it up, loosens it up. When it dries, it's gonna harden and it's gonna shrink wrap. So it's perfect, all right? Let's get our pour on. I'm gonna hold paper on the back of my hand like this, so that as I do my pour, it'll help to catch it all. Mercifully, I didn't pour it really hot. If you do, shame on you. Glue on you. Doesn't take long. Basically sets up pretty quick. I'm gonna rotate it over. We're gonna hit it from the other side. All right, I got a pretty good mess. I spit the sinew juice out. It tastes like tendons. Anyways, all right, there we go. So this is how it starts out. I'm gonna let it cool. I'm gonna let it harden. I did mix a little bit of the dust from when I was grinding this thing off. It can change the color a little bit. If you mix in quite a bit of it, you can change it so that it's, you know, it looks a little bit more like the material that you're actually putting it onto. But I don't mind that it's black and awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let it cool down, let it harden. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna come in and I'm gonna thin out this wood right along here so that I have a little bit of a recess for my cordage to sit into. I like just a little bit of space in there. Then I'm gonna come in with my waxed hemp. I got waxed hemp and waxed linen. You can get this, I get this stuff online because you can find it occasionally. Bookbinding material. That's where I can find waxed linen thread. People that still hand make books, they use this stuff, and it's awesome. Waxed cordage is much easier to work with. I really, really like it, and it's got some kind of a bite into there. And then I'm also going to seal it up with burn and wound cream. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyways, all right, there you go. Looks pretty solid. Next, we got our tendons. Ooh, I need a little bit of that notch. There's this that notch that they put in the base of the arrow. I want to make sure that's got plenty of space to work with in there. This is why it's good to have a moderate thrasher knife, because I would not want to use my super sharp knife for this. Makes me sad. Cutting towards stone, things that make you cringe. When you sharpen your own knives, you care about it a lot more than you do when you just buy your edge. Sinew, though, if it sits out in the rain for a long time, can soften again. This is why most people did not fight with bow and arrow or spear in the rain, if you could help it. So we can protect it somewhat by waxing it, or if you wanted to reapply more of the glue to pitch to seal that area up, it would protect it from further elements, okay? That's a way to protect it. Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap this right now, the whole thing just in hemp, waxed hemp, and then we're gonna call it good. Blunt end on there. Glue that thing in there. Sweet. All right, y'all. I got it finished up. There's gonna be one last step. So I did the flap disc sander to take off the initial bark, and then I did 120 grit sander here. If I go over like 200 or 220, what happens is I'm gonna use refined linseed oil, y'all. Refined linseed oil is my absolute favorite. I use it because I eat with a lot of wooden spoons. I love it. And I use butcher blocks. So refined linseed oil for my staff maintenance is like premium. For my metal, my tools, my knives and stuff like that, I use mineral oil. But refined linseed oil, because it's linen. It's flax. It comes from the flax. But this is the last step, so we'll see kind of how it all looks. So this took probably overall about 3 hours. A lot of that was just finding the tools. You know what I mean? What do you think of that, Jubilee? Isn't that beautiful?
It looked orange when I was in the sun.
It looked orange when you're in the sun?
It looked bright orange.
Look at it now.
Now when it didn't have the oil on it, it looked pink.
So, I guess maybe it took about a total of 7 months because I had to let it dry. If you cut wood down in the spring, you gotta let it dry for a long time. The best time to cut stuff is in the winter when it's the absolute coldest that it can be. There's less sap in the tree, in the actual tissues of the tree. So, most people say it takes really a year per inch. A lot of ways to season it and dry it out properly, but I don't generally live anywhere for a year, so. This is I jumped the gun. I brought it inside and let it dry out inside as long as I could. And now, if you do cut a staff down and it's really, really juicy and you don't seal the ends of it, what'll happen, and if you take all the bark off of it, it'll bow into like a C shape. You'll really regret it. So I leave the bark on as long as possible, and then you seal the end caps with just basically like beeswax. And there you go. The blunt end of the spear.